Hey, everybody, I'm Sean Robinson.
I'm Carson Grubaugh.
We're living the line, and today we're going to be taking a look at a book that involves some backbreaking labor. What are your memories of reading Shadowhawk as a kid? Because I have some fairly distinctive memories about
Well,
this
you
book.
tell me, and then I'll explain why I got us into this,
Yeah,
why my memory is different than.
sure. So my memory of Shadowhawk, once again, I'm 42 years old. I was born the last couple days of 1979, which God knows how old that made me when I was actually reading this. But I had actually read several different issues of Jim Valentino's Normal Man, which was given to me by my uncle Donnie, who died a couple of years ago, but is a very formative influence on my tastes. Uncle Donnie, I went up to his house in Michigan one summer. He was a really awesome dude. He worked for oil companies, and he had the magic touch and knowing what was going to be underneath the ground. So he had like some seismic equipment and stuff, but he he was like an artisan about it. Like he could look at the thing and you just tell like this is the place you want to dig. Really interesting guy. And he read comics on the side, and he gave me this batch of comics, and it was like a bunch of critters, this Fantagraphics funny animal thing. The first couple issues of Usagi Yojimbo, and one of the things that he gave me was Normal Man. And which Valentino's early work when he was just Valentino, it was very super cartoony and things like that. And I remember picking up Guardians of the Galaxy, which is the book that he was working on at the time the Image started up, and thinking, oh, that's the same guy. Look, it's the same last name, but the style was totally different. And he was really working at the time, I would say, like a sort of sub superhero style, where he hadn't quite resolved the style, and there was still some stuff. And then when I picked up Shadowhawk, I was really into the whole Image launch when I was 12 or whatever, and I really was both enjoyed and perplexed by the book because of this sort of moral outlook of it. Let's say.
Yeah. But I think that was heavily intentional on his part for
right.
Sure. Like on a reread, he's actually. It seems like a book that could almost be made these days in terms of the focus on like a cast of diverse characters in terms of ethnic background and sexual orientation and gender and all of that stuff.
If you could be just slightly more on mic. I think you're kind of off mic a little bit, or maybe tilt it so that's a little bit more towards you directionally.
There we go. I can turn it up too.
I think it's just the off axis thing.
Cool.
So it's interesting. I think the context was really the rest of the Image lineup. If you think about the books that were launching the first couple months that Image was out, you had like Youngblood, where it's like super gratuitous, where like he's really like, okay, I get to do all the things that Fabian wouldn't allow me to. It's like, I'm gonna kill somebody with my pen. Here I'm sleeping with a prostitute. My character's doing this. And that in that sort of context, I think that the fact that the quote unquote hero of the book was breaking people's backs was very much like, hey, I went to the arcade and I saw this Mortal Kombat game. Here's this edgy thing I can do. But you're right. Like, having come back to it this week, and when we sort of went through it, I think that there's a lot more nuance that I was giving it credit for. As a 12-year-old, I was like, what is this?
That's funny, because to me it's like the opposite. Like, the reason what happened was we were doing the Trencher episode, and that includes the Images of the Shadowhawk books, and I said, oh, like Shadowhawk was a great Image book, like it was a really good one. And you're like, what, really? I don't remember being that great. And I was like, no, like we got to read it because it's really good. And I remember Shadowhawk being a book that to me seemed to be dealing with serious issues.
Right.
As a kid, I realized that and then the one issue that I really want to look at that I'll still stand behind is the one where that was the first time in a book I was like, oh damn, like a social issue slapping me in the face. And none of the other Image books were that. It's Youngblood, Wildcats, like it's just cool action stuff. And so that was my memory and why I said, oh, it's such a great book. Now, going back and reading it, I was like, ooh, like the
Mixed bag.
pacing,
Yeah.
the pacing of it's like really, like he has all these good ideas structurally, and he obviously has a like 18 run issue, or I think it was probably like a 12 issue arc, and he was
Hmm.
seeding these different really interesting peak points that dealt with social issues and stuff. But the dialogue and the like the pacing of all of
Right.
those peaks and stuff, like I had a hard time finishing reading it, honestly.
Yeah. Let's take a look at it while we
Yeah,
talk about that.
yeah,
That's a really good observation, and we should say, I think it's fair to say that he's finding his footing as a sort of auteur, somebody who's having to do
yeah,
everything other than the lettering. Because Valentino, as we said, had a series called Normal Man where he did the writing and the art, but the style was radically different. You can actually see some of it on that left-hand page there with the figure, um, that more cartoon structure to it, and a sort of simplified figure and a more flat on view and everything like that. That's more typical of his sort of Normal Man style, but you've sort of got this like superhero hatching, like I'm an image, so I've got to do some of this stuff
yeah.
uh, laid on top of it, and it's
And
a sort of
you see him
uncomfortable
trying to,
fit.
you see him trying to pick that up here. And then the first series that is inked by him, it doesn't work as well. In the second series, he gets an inker named Chance Wolf, who's I think better at the image look on top of the Valentino layouts. But one thing I noted, I don't really want to spend too much time on these first issues, but I noted like in another image book, you would never get this many people,
Right.
right? Like a party scene like that. So I appreciate it, but then it falls into like the firefighter guy named Arson, and some of the costume designs and stuff are pretty.
Yeah, and something, it's funny, like you look at a book like Savage Dragon or something where Eric Larson takes the superhero of the month or villain of the month thing, and he just runs with it and basically makes it as enjoyable as you can possibly make it. Whereas this sort of wallowing in the, that second issue there has a bunch of stuff about, like crime and, criminals as predators and a predatory species that, you know, it's like a sort of uncomfortable collision of several of those different elements simultaneously.
But you'll get stuff like "You're toast" from the fire guy. Yeah, but it's like it's juxtaposed against his desire to be a more serious artist and do like a social critique. So there's like government structures. It's a bit like watching like The Wire try to come together with a really bad DC movie. Like this cast of multiple characters shifting, and he's running this contest of like who is Shadowhawk, and he's giving clues. There's multiple characters that could be, and he's building towards a big reveal, and building all of like these other villains and stuff. Things like here's a pronunciation guide of how to pronounce Juarez, which is so 90s like.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle for somebody who had only written a parody book at that point. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he wrote Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah,
too.
he did.
He did. Okay.
Pretty
Um,
sure.
and that was a fun book though too. I mean, the way that he ran that book anyway, it was, I get the feeling that was fairly loose on him editorially. But anyway, this is definitely something new, and you got to admire somebody kind of trying to punch above their weight class.
Yeah. Speaking of the dragon.
Right.
Something else that I do like about it is that he was like taking
That's
this
a wicked
gimmick.
cover.
Yeah, he takes these gimmick covers that were like the thing at the time and actually like makes them work. Like there's a
Mhm.
metallic ink on here and it works. This has glow in the dark ink on it.
Yeah, I thought that's a real strong one compositionally too. You can see
Yeah.
he's kind of pilfering from some of the more successful like Dark Knight artists. Who's the name of the guy? What's the name of the guy who did like he ended up on Catwoman for a real long time.
Him
But he
say
did.
or no, Ballant, Jim Ballant.
Yeah, and then there's also the guy who was on Batman during the sort of Bane stuff, who did those real stylish covers. Anyway,
Oh, Kelly Jones.
Kelly Jones. There you go. You
Yeah.
can see him sort of, surveying the newsstand for some of those elements there, in terms of the compositional stuff.
Well, and Shadowhawk's like Batman and Wolverine,
Right.
right? Like he's a little bit more badass like Wolverine. He's got the claws, he's got the Wolverine mask, but then kind of the bat thing as well. Here's
Skewed
a
sense
really
of ethics.
yeah. His sense of ethics is in between Wolverine and Batman too.
Right.
Here's another cool cover. This is Shadowhawk 2. And this
Yeah,
is it's all black with like embossing on it, and then the silver. I don't know how well that's going to show up on camera. So that's nice. And then you go inside.
wow. I had
So you're like
forgotten about that one.
embossing, die cut, foil.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know, a big leap in terms of the art here too. So you're saying there's an external inker on this one now?
yeah, this is Chance Wolf. I think Valentino's all the way through.
The miniseries, yeah.
Chance Wolf took over
Oh,
later
okay.
on in the miniseries too. But I
Yeah,
think Valentino has a better sense of dynamics in this one as well. Like the characters are more.
yeah. I noticed that he gives himself a little bit less per page to draw too, which probably, you know, assists in the in the anatomical department.
And the image look,
Right.
the big gritted teeth, faces and stuff. But like a picture like that with all that foreshortening,
Uh-huh.
that's just way better. Better production, shinier paper, nicer colors. It starts doing
Yeah.
these photorealist background type of things.
I love those color hold, photo reduced color hold backgrounds. So this is like a photo that's been turned into a 1-bit image, you know, on off, and then it's represented as a hold, single color hold. He uses that in the next issue, the one that we're really going to dig in a little bit too.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on. And even I think it's probably Chance Wolf doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but like the buildings that are drawn get a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, story really hard to read. This issue, though, is the issue that I remember. It's just like burnt into my memory because the moment was so dramatic. The
It's a
reveal
great
of
cover too.
Shadowhawk. Yeah. And
My
again,
goodness.
just like nice use of the foil.
I love that across the shoulder, through the hand, and you get little hints as to who it's going to be by some of the. Yeah, so as you said, he's built up a few things, but then we've got a few suspects.
Yeah. And in this first issue, he introduces kind of the major villain for this arc. I've lost my tab now, but there's a guy running around. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just in this one. There's a guy running around. Here's Frank Miller.
No, he was in the previous issue too. Yeah, he was the guy that was foreshortened.
Oh yeah. So we're introduced
Hawk's Shadow or something.
Yeah, Hawk Shadow instead of Shadowhawk, and he's a copycat of Shadowhawk, except he's actually killing people. There we go. And here you see his motivation is this character. The setup on this character is he's like seeing this blonde woman kiss a black guy, and he's saying that one is attacking this woman, that blonde woman. This can't be. And he goes down there and kills this guy who's like a mayor or so. He's like an important figure in the city.
Right.
And he's like, you'll never suffer the indignity of this animal's touch again. It's no way. You don't understand. He's my husband. And you realize that this character is a racist. You know, he's
right.
He's definitely a white supremacist.
Yeah. So the Shadowhawk character, you know, like we said, he has a principle, which is that he's going to punish these people by essentially leaving them imprisoned in their own bodies. But there's some ambiguity to it. You know, we see like some of the bad repercussions of it and stuff, but you know, he sees himself as a hero anyway. But here's somebody who also sees himself as a hero, who's even stylized his own name using the same guy's name, but is to us repellent. And it's a fairly sophisticated thing to sort of put those two up against each other and invite discussion.
Oh, we lost the.
Oh, so that first page is rad.
Yeah, you think Frank Miller, right?
Just yeah, well, I was thinking Eisner, because doesn't he dedicate this issue to Eisner? Yeah. Will you read the dedication?
Dedicated to Will Eisner, who proved an artist can be a businessman and for his great storytelling in Rain. Yeah, okay, so it's Eisner Rain. To me, that's super Sin City too, but that
Wow.
has its Eisner elements.
Yeah, I think you know, Frank probably took the Eisner and just reduced the or up the contrast.
Yeah. And I think also he's calling out Eisner in specific because Eisner taking on socially conscious themes in his work, and this issue has that. But you can see on this page, like way better at the image.
Yeah,
the image
texture,
vibes.
the texture on that gargoyle there is incredible. You got some spatter happening on the stone. That's really nice. I was really luxuriating over that, enjoying that image there. Same with those highlights. You're right. He's really benefiting from the inking
and the coloring. The computer coloring on this it's got the doorknob thing we talk about, but it's actually like seems a little bit more conscious of actual lighting,
and color integration. Like the dude there has got a black, or a blue highlight on him on that side. Real nice storytelling color there with the panel 2 to the left of that, where you've got the rim light with the magenta, and then the cyan inside of the figure, and then there's that color hold background we were talking about too, which is also that's an unusual look. I like that a lot,
and very different for Image. So this is the issue that made me remember the entire series with such like reverence.
Right.
So you get the scene that builds up to the reveal, and Shadowhawk has finally found Hawk's shadow, and he's out to take back this city. Take back my city. Sounds like a DC on CW. My city, my city. But he's I'm not even gonna read the dialogue because that's too dangerous. But he's using racial epithets, and he's gonna take back this city from the blacks. And there's a scene too where he's like at home with his mom, and he's got like a swastika, and he's obviously like dad was a KKK member. And Shadowhawk comes to stop him, and this guy's like, oh my god, I'm meeting my hero, like I based my whole thing on you.
Right. Yeah, here you are, you've appeared. I'm going to say your name, and it's going to appear, your logo is going to appear in the middle of the balloon.
Yeah. And Shadowhawk's also been out of commission for like a couple months because in the previous series he gets blown up and is hurt. So this guy's been operating, and he's like, oh my god, my hero, you're back. And no, you appropriated my name, like you've taken my image. And he's like, well, yeah, like I've taken on your sacred mission to rid our city of this vermin. And you realize he's misinterpreted that Shadowhawk going after criminals. And they show, if you go, this, and you go back to the series, you see there's criminals of many different ethnicities, but this guy's interpreted it as like just the blacks. And then he throws down an N-bomb. I'm only killing, and then this big black panel with it. And Shadow says, what, you racist, ignorant racist fool. And then you get this big, cool double page reveal of who Shadowhawk is.
Yeah.
You mean like me? And you read it this way, you mean like me. And like, what a great use of a double page spread, right?
Awesome. So awesome. What a fantastic, yeah. And tilting it to the right so that that's even possible to do it, and having the sequence play out across the fold. So you've got to participate in this reveal, which is an interesting psychological move. We've talked before about how, like, if Magneto appears in an issue of X-Men or whatever, it by the time you've left the newsstand, because you've already flipped through it. This is like a reveal that you actually have to actively participate in.
And I don't know, let's see, I guess if you flip through, because his mask gets torn for the first time so you can see his skin color. But yeah, if you flip through real quick, you wouldn't get that anyway. So you wouldn't, even flipping through it at the newsstand, you're right, you wouldn't get it, because you don't ever, like, he's not with his mask off then. So you got to buy it and unfold it. And that's the moment I remember that and I think not enough time is spent on it now in retrospect. you know, with all of the peaks and valleys of the story. But as a kid, that sequence of him dropping that word and then the reveal of this mystery that he's been building up over 7 issues at this point was like, that just really changed my opinion about comics could be serious. And that painted my impression of the whole series as this like kind of overlooked gem in the early Image catalog. And then also Shadowhawk goes on in the 3rd series. We're not going to look at that because I found right after we talked about needing to look at Shadowhawk, I went to Second and Charles, and this was like right up front, just boom, like staring at me. I said, okay, and I dug through the bins, and these are what I could find. So we don't have series 3 to look at, and I don't really want to spend a lot more time on it. But in series 3, it's revealed that the character that Shadowhawk has AIDS as well. And I remember that being a real big thing, and that he dies at the end of that. He goes on a search for a cure, which gets real cheesy, like Spawn trying to cure him, Supreme trying to cure him, going to the future. It's really bad. But he dies at the end, and that was like a huge thing to me too. And I forgot about the cheesier parts. And also the way he gets AIDS is like he was a district attorney and some gangsters break into his office and like shoot him with the needle. And I'm pretty sure the implication is that they just shot him up with AIDS.
Wow.
Not that they were drugging him, but with a dirty needle, but that like that's what they did, is they shot him full of AIDS.
That's a very interesting plot point.
Yeah. So
this guy here with his mustache and the thing slung over his shoulder, man, I just knew this guy growing up in Florida.
also what are you doing? Like this goes this way and then this goes this way. Like why isn't his head here?
This guy right there, that with the mustache and everything, he's like if Cable lived in Florida. That's so beautiful. we turn him right side up so we can see him. This is Cable Man.
If they would have bothered to make sure the issue had one image. For all the good design decisions. Yeah, Slaughter.
Well,
he's
Slaughter,
a bounty hunter. And the scene where he chases down, we'll look at that because that's in issue 3, and we have time to look at that because that's this shows like why rereading it, I was so frustrated with this series, because there's really great moments like that, and then there's like, oh, the gangsters shoot you full of AIDS, but then we get to deal with a serious topic. And then here he finally catches him. He's a bounty hunter hired by the police to catch the backbreaking vigilante. And he's like, well, you know, why are you doing what you're doing? Justice. Not a lot of that going around these days, that's for sure. Why not just kill him? Blam, you're in and you're out. It's over and done. It's too easy. My way, they suffer. And you see the bounty hunter kind of smirk, like, I like you, buddy. Sadistic little son of a bitch, ain't you? No, they hurt others. I hurt them. I only go after the violent ones. I catch them in the act. And then you sentence them? Yes. Scales are balanced? More or less. Justice is served? I think so. Anyone ever tell you're a little psycho? 1. I see. Okay, I like it. Hit the road, Jack. You're free to go. And like that's the culmination of that whole thing, is that's what I'm saying. The pacing and the dialogue really drag down these what I do think are really great ambitions of the series.
That's an interesting double page spread there. This is the pose that we were talking about before. This is the if you see the entire pose, you'll know that this person's about to fall on their face. X-Men run.
Yeah. Well, and that's the Batman combined with Wolverine, Jim Lee Warblade shot, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
And then the dialogue here, and there's suggestions here where he's talking about he's running out of time, where you're getting a hint. So the AIDS thing was like part of the pre-plan, which that's what I appreciate. Valentino had this kind of structure all the way through, is obvious, but Slaughter, in spite of himself, has given me a renewed faith that what I'm doing is right. But then again, he kills people for a living. And then the tormented like Batman, and he's talking about how tired he is, the tired that goes down to his soul. So you're setting up the AIDS thing.
Yeah. Well, geez, no wonder he's tired. He climbed a 50-story building by jumping around in the air.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna do this on camera because this is another great piece of cover design. This is after the reveal issue.
That? Yeah.
Uh,
What are you doing?
I'm gonna wreck this
Carson.
comic book here because there's not enough of these, and this is valuable.
Whoa.
But again, metallic inks. And look, if you're gonna do gimmick covers, oh shit, I gotta tear it this way. Use it for like awesome. Oh, I'm ripping it. Use it for awesome.
An ad.
Oh, there we go. I just wrecked it. But like you can pull his cover off and get the reveal.
And his arms.
Yeah, huge arms, like 4 times the length they should be.
Oh,
just to make it fit.
Awesome. How cool is that?
It's way cool.
It's great design.
Yeah.
Hats off to Mr. Valentino. I think we should really investigate Normal Man and his work, his autobiographical, I think it was autobiographical work that he did before that or shortly after that.
He does autobiography.
What's that?
He does do autobiography, yeah.
I just don't remember if it was before or after Normal Man, but he had a brief series. I haven't read any of those, in the same time span. I mean, we're talking, 30 years now or whatever, for both of these. But I at the time I thought that Normal Man was really funny. I'd be very curious to see it now. Have you seen this at all?
Yeah, the concept is like he's dressed in like a shirt and tie and stuff, right? He's a normal guy being a superhero. Like his powers are his normalcy.
Right, exactly, because he's surrounded by essentially the craziness of the comics industry. And Valentino had a really self-assured, simplified style that includes some really, really simple brushwork and stuff like that. So it's a very different experience from the Image stuff, and it's very interesting to see that he would take something like that on, in a more or less monthly basis. And there was some breaks between the series, right? But
yeah, I didn't look at the dates, but I think so. Yeah. And like as much as I'm critical going back about the pacing and the dialogue and stuff, it's still the design things we talked about, I think made an impact on me. And then B, like as a 13, 14-year-old, that pacing and dialogue stuff, that's the pacing and dialogue you want. And I think that may have been partly intentional. He knew his audience, he was writing to his audience, but he was being subversive and sneaking these greater ideas in. And that's why I remember the series like that slapped me across the face as a kid. Yeah. So big props to him for like running that balance.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, thanks for sharing with the class, Carson. And
yeah,
I'm really glad I got to reread it. It was very interesting. My impressions of it were roughly, roughly the same, except for the, sort of, admiring the additional sort of nuance that was, I missed the first time around. But I was not a Mortal Kombat kid. Let's put it that way. I played Street Fighter. That was more my speed.
I wasn't allowed.
The edgy kind of thing is just always gave me a little, I always got a little squicked out by that. So I don't think I made it to, I think I made it to Shadow. I think I made it to the issue before that. And that was enough for me. But
just one more.
Only one more. And then I would have been imprinted like a baby duckling as well.
Yeah.
And then I'd be
it's
awesome.
Funny because it sounds like we met in the middle, like your memory and my memory, and then we kind of met in the middle in adulthood, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. Your childhood impression and my childhood impression are now shaking hands.
Yeah.
At their destination.
I like it.
Well, speaking of shaking hands, check out The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, which has a 4-page handshake sequence
Yeah.
that is quite impressive. I'm not joking about this. It really does. Is it 4 pages or 5 pages? It's
Here we go. Well, we got a spread here where it's on one of the pages. Look at these
Okay.
pages. Look at these page
Yeah.
layouts by Dave Sim. They're absolutely gorgeous with the Sim sizzle all over them. There's 2 more pages.
because we're up to 3 right now.
Yeah.
4, 5.
5. Hold on. The handshake's not there, but the faces are there.
6. No less than 6 pages dedicated to a single handshake. That is the riveting storytelling you can expect from the Strange Death of Alex Raymond. Hope that you will pick it up. And come in September, we got Plaza by Yokoyama Yuichi. Very excited about that. Yeah, so how about we send it off with a little music now?
What are we gonna do? You gonna play for us?
You know, I was trying to think. What disco song was I thinking when we were doing the flip through? Something about working for a living. I think you can make a really good Shadowhawk mixtape. Is all I'm saying.
Okay, send me that mixtape and we'll
Okay.
put it at the end. We'll put the list. We'll put a list of YouTube links in the bottom.
Awesome. All right. Have a good one, guys.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.